board with Post-it notes on it, and I'd go the next day and they'd all be rearranged, and he'd say, "What do you think?" And then he'd rearrange them again. And I think he stayed sane through it all, but it was a lot of work, and much appreciated. And the final product was just so incredible. It's one of my favorite books of all times, and got them for everyone in my family and a lot of friends, and actually put one in my dad's casket when he passed away. So it was one of his favorite books too.
Oh, that
But
is
yeah, it was unbelievable, and much appreciated. And anyway, I'll turn it over to Penny, and she can announce our guests.
okay. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm glad so many of you are here tonight for the program, the Celery Farm Looking Back. But first, a reminder of the next Fyke program on April 23rd, South K May Meadows with Damon Noah. And thanks for Jim for arranging this. 2 decades ago, Jerry Barrack and Jim Wright joined forces to create In the Presence of Nature, better known as simply the Celery Farm Book. Jim wrote the text and Jerry provided the photos. Doug Goodell contributed as well. Jim is an author, birding columnist, and blogger. Jerry is a photographer par excellence. Both love the Celery Farm. Tonight, Jerry and Jim are showing images from the book, highlighting what's changed and what has remained the same. Please welcome our own Jim and Jerry.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to start by mentioning to people that at the end of the talk, we're going to answer questions. So if you see a little double bubble down at the bottom, it's Q&A, and there's number 3 next to it on my screen. But if you have questions, please type them in, and after we do the show, we'll open up the questions and try to answer as many as we can. So just keep that in mind. But rather than answer questions as we go along and lose our momentum, we thought we'd do that. And also like just to thank Penny and Mike and Kevin for setting this up, and of course, everyone listening tonight. You're probably wondering, is Jerry Barrack in a helicopter above the celery farm right now? So Jerry, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'd like to thank Mike and Penny and all the Fikers who have joined this Zoom meeting. Jim and I have given many talks before at the Fyke meetings, but this is my first Zoom meeting. So I hope it works well. And I know Kevin's running it, and I'm sure he has mentioned that we'll take questions at the end. Many of you recognize this background behind me as an image from the book, but I'll talk about that later. I started thinking about doing a book on the farm in the mid-90s, 6 or 7 years after I first started visiting this amazing place. For several years, I badgered Stiles to do it with me, but I never got to convince him. All the while, I was collecting hundreds and then thousands of slides from dawn to dusk throughout the 4 seasons. The images in this book were all from slides, as I didn't get into digital photography until 2003. The prospects for a book took a sudden turn for the better when I first met Jim in late 2000. Jim, you want to take it?
Sure. Patty and I moved into the celery farm late August, and we were walking around the celery farm before then, and I said, you know, I really want to do a book about this place, knowing nothing about it. And we asked our friend Nancy Green, who's the photographer we should get? She goes, there's no question, Jerry Barrack. So on Labor Day weekend, I'm up at the Warden's Watch. I see this photographer, and I said, hi, I'm Jim Wright. Who are you? And he goes, I'm Jerry Barrack. And I said, boy, am I glad to see you. And that's how the book started. So I'm going to share my screen here. I try it, and we'll see how it goes. How's that look? Excellent.
Good.
So this is the Celery Farm 2 decades later. I think the book actually came out in 2002, but we had just finished it at the end of in like October of 2001.
Yeah. And this picture was worked on by Doug Goodell a lot, and I really appreciated that because it was a difficult one to take. We're shooting right into the sun, and he had to work on it to make it as good as it was. But early on, we sort of decided that this picture would be a very nice cover for the book, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of room for words too.
Yes, yes. And there's a funny story behind this beautiful sunrise. I had agreed to meet Rob Fanning at the farm before sunrise, as we were going to go over to Garrett Mountain, and Rob was going to find some beautiful birds for me. And I got there as this was occurring, and I wanted to take some photographs, and Rob, of course, wasn't the slightest bit interested in the beautiful sunrise or my pictures of it. He just wanted to get to Garrett Mountain. So I took a few, he allowed me that, and then we raced over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So early on, I told Stiles we wanted to dedicate the book to him, and he says, that's not right. You need to dedicate it to the mayor, Ed Fitzpatrick, as well, who had died, but he was instrumental in getting the Celery Farm put together. And the main trail around the preserve around Lake Appert is in honor of Ed Fitzpatrick. So those guys are terrific. I found this quote that was in the book from Ed Fitzpatrick. It was in the New York Times. And he said, the idea is not to build anything on it. We're not trying to keep anyone out, and accessibility is pretty good. But this is not a park, it's a natural area. And I think that still holds today.
Yeah. Jim had the feeling that he didn't want to cover up my photographs with quotes, but I think one of the brilliant ideas for the book and what really added so much to it was the quotes. And I don't mind at all being covered over by Rachel Carson or any of the other well-known people that were on the quotes. I think if you take time to read them all, they really have great meaning and impact nowadays.
I think as we go through the show, take a look at like Lake Appert. You look how it has changed. That was probably taken from the Warden's Watch.
Yes.
Those are probably loosestrife clumps. And the whole geography of the lake has changed over the years, and so has the land.
Yeah, sometimes when you get there early in the morning, there's a mist over the pond, and some of the people just don't even bother to look because it's hard to spot things. But you can get some very interesting photographs if you can get something close enough in the foreground to be really visible, and then there's the mist in the background. I love shooting in mist.
And once again, you can see some of the little islands in the back that are no longer there.
Yeah, they were great perches for the birds.
I was really happy to find this quote to go with the sunrise. One of the great things about the Celery Farm, but sort of a drawback, is that people think that this has just happened by accident, and it's a wonderful spot to go and no one has to do any work. And you sort of scratch your head after a while, but you know, Mike and the deputy wardens and all the volunteers that help really are the people who make the Celery Farm, and can't thank them enough. There'll be a picture of the butterfly garden later, and we'll acknowledge them then. But
Jim, I'd just like to say about David Sibley's quote in the introduction. He said, "Wouldn't it be great if every town had a celery farm?" And I'd also add that, wouldn't it be great if every town had a group like the Fykers who take care of it? And we're so grateful to all of them, Mike and Fred Weber and everybody that does it. But you're right, people take it for granted.
yeah, so I was very pleased to get that quote. And of course, Frederick Law Olmsted also designed Central Park, and the Fenway in Boston. So this could be my favorite old time shot. I cannot remember, maybe the year we moved in the year 2000, it was this green, but I've never seen the Celery Farm this lush in maybe a decade or so.
Yeah, this was probably taken in maybe 1990 or so.
Yeah, and you can, what's amazing to me is there's grass on the path.
Yes,
What it's
there's
just
many people walking it.
when you took that shot, I'm sure you had no idea that's sort of an archival shot now. Here's what the
Yes.
Celery Farm used to look like. And you can see what an understory it had in those days. And we had the Canada geese there then.
Yeah. Jim's favorite shot of the geese going the other direction.
Yes, geese leaving are always good. The geese keep telling me, hey, when are you going to bring back the grass? And I said, no time soon, probably. Also, one of the great things in the book and about the Celery Farm is Dee Burnside did this really kick-ass map of the Celery Farm. And she was so gracious to let us use it in the book and use it on all the brochures. And it's just great. You get a real sense of the place, and it's kind of old school. So it's got a great funk to it. And things like No Name Culvert is just terrific. So we still refer to all these landmarks by those names. So.
Yeah, and this is an interesting shot because I'd always wanted to get a close-up of a large bird with the Celery Farm Lake in the background. And this was a very cooperative great blue heron. In fact, Stiles thought it had been a rehabilitated bird because it really had absolutely no fear of humans. And it was on the spillway on the concrete there. And I just sat down on the other end and sort of shuffled in and take a few pictures each time. And when I finally put the camera down, you know, when you look through a wide angle lens, things look far away. And when I put the camera down, I was about 2 to 3 feet from that bird. And he easily could have poked me with his beak, but fortunately I just backed off and I got the shot.
When I saw Jerry and the heron, I thought they were dating. That's how close he was. This one I call the kid's eye view of the Celery Farm, because when it comes to finding frogs, turtles, rabbits, and chipmunks, the best way to see all these is to go around the Celery Farm with someone age 6 or younger, because they just see all these really cool things. And happy to say they're all still at the Celery Farm. And having the frogs there is a sign of healthy water, so that's always good.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into the butterfly garden over the years with keeping the watered and so on. And this was a photograph of Where's Waldo, because Stiles was with me at this time, and I asked him to sit in the back and just, you know, be quiet for a second and pose with me. And I always enjoyed this picture.
Also, this was the days when the butterfly garden was cut in the middle with the path right down the center. And maybe a decade ago, we rearranged it. I didn't do it, but the garden people did, and Stiles and Fred, I think, but so all the flowers are in one spot. And we love this picture. And we have maybe a month to go before we have to send the book away. And I'm going over everything, and I realize, Jerry, we have no photographs of butterflies. And I'm still pretty new to the Celery Farm. And I said, why don't we just go up to the butterfly garden and we'll get all the pictures we need. And today I would say good luck doing that. But back in the year 2000, 2001, Jerry took all these pictures within an hour one afternoon at the butterfly garden. And, you know, we have the great spangled fritillary and the eastern swallowtail, and Jerry even got a hummingbird moth, which when we looked at said, what the heck is that thing? I think that might have been the first one I'd ever noticed.
Yes, it was. And it was amazing that it was just meant to be. It took, as I said, less than an hour maybe to get everything.
And now when you try to get pictures of butterflies, alas, it's not quite that easy. This is another one of Jerry's beautiful composed shots. I think he had to pay that butterfly like $5 to sit there. But it was worth every penny, Jerry.
Yes, it was.
And I wish I could identify those guys. Maybe someone can type in the question and answer, and we'll find out. Otherwise, I'll make it a Monday morning mystery on my blog.
Yeah, this is the old barn. It was a great photographic prop for years until it was taken down. I photographed it in all the 4 seasons, and it was sad. I was there the day that they were taking it down. I was on the Peary Mayhood platform, and it was sort of sad, but time marches on.
And that's now where Fox Run is, behind there, right?
Yes, yeah. And you can spot the panes on the left.
Yeah, there's those greenhouse frames on the left, and that's when you see all the glass that you can spend your life removing glass from the celery farm, but it's from all of those cold frames that they use to start the plants early in the spring. But had a chance to talk to 2 of the sisters who grew up on the Bajer farm, and I think we have a recording of that somewhere. But the Bajer sisters and the Bajers were a major part of the celery farm, and it was the Appert farm and the Bajer farm. And if you'll notice, the real Allendale people say, "I'm going to the celery farms," because it really was plural. So when you hear an Allendailer say they're going to the celery farms, you know that's an old timer.
Yeah, this was a sign for the short time that it lasted, but most people probably read it as no fishing. I don't know whether the Great Blue interpreted it that way, but this typical Styles humor. And the sign only lasted a few days. Obviously, somebody really liked it because they took it out. It was right in front of the warden's watch.
I think Rob Fanning might have taken offense. He is a terrific pitcher, and to have this denied to him didn't seem fair.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to take a slow exposure of a bird, and if you're lucky, you get the head fairly still and the wings moving, so you get them in motion. They're called blur photographs, and they're intentionally blurred. It's not an accident. And I've gotten into it more and more, and you can get some very interesting shots. You get a lot of deletes, but sometimes you get a real winner.
As I get older, I'm taking more blur shots.
Yeah. Yeah, the Osprey too, they now I understand there are more there now, Jim, than there were when this was taken.
No, last spring, because the celery farm was closed, we could hear multiple ospreys calling from Lake Appert. So I think that was one case where fewer people, the ospreys, appreciated it. But they come, when I think they're heading north or south, as the time may be. But people say they nest at the celery farm. I've never seen a nest. Someone has, let me know, but they're usually passing through. And the legend is, they had Scuffy Scaphuro's fishery hatchery over there where Meadow Lane now is. And a lot of the goldfish got out and became giant gold carp, these bright orange carp. And of course, if you're an osprey and you're hungry, and the celery farm Lake Appert's only 1 or 2 feet deep, and you see these orange fish, it's next best thing to fish in a barrel, I guess. But the goal, which I don't think I've ever achieved, but it's try to get the osprey as he or she catches the fish. And the thing is hitting the water. It's just amazing to see a hawk fish like this, but it hits the water, and then just the strength it takes to leave the water. You have no ground to push off on, and he then takes off. Jerry sort of was disappointed in this picture. Looks like he grabbed a rock or a branch or something.
Yeah, but you can see the intensity of his eyes and again, the blur movement, because the speed. Now I've come to realize that in order to eliminate blur in the wings, you probably need a speed of about a 32 hundredths of a second. possibly a 2500th of a second. But now I'm shooting, when I want to eliminate blur, I shoot at 3200ths of a second.
Wow. And with the Ospreys, there's a military aircraft called the Osprey, and because it's able to just take off straight up. And that was named after that bird. This is sort of the good news and bad news picture, I call it. This was back in the day when I don't think I'd ever seen a mink at the Celery Farm 20 years ago. And of course
This
now,
was the first one I'd ever seen.
fairly common now. You can see them if you're lucky. And so Jerry and I are on the Warden's Watch, and we see this mink right on the edge of Lake Appert. They go, Jerry, look at this. And Jerry's got his huge camera, his Hubble telescope, and it's on the tail gunner turret there, and he spins it around, starts firing it, and the thing jumps in the water. And I go, Jerry, did you get the picture? And he goes, yes. And so we're giving each other high fives. I looked down, and where the mink had jumped into the water, it had now climbed out of the water with a giant goldfish, and Jerry wasn't close enough to get the
I missed
picture.
it.
So the lesson for photographers, take the picture, but then don't celebrate yet, because there may be a
Right.
better shot coming along. And
Yeah.
it turned out now I've seen so many great mink pictures since then. This was the first one.
This
the
was
one
the
thing-
first one I got, and then it took probably 10 years before I got another one.
The other thing about mink, and everyone thinks they are so cute and cuddly. They are really, really nasty creatures. And I have a friend, Bobby Thurston, who lives in Allendale, and the mink got into his bird coops, and I think he decapitated every bird he could kill. Didn't eat them, just killed them. And my wife Patty was saying, oh yeah, I never see a mink, I never see a mink. And she's in our backyard right next to the Celery Farm, and there's a mink with a squirrel. And the squirrel's screaming, and the mink drags it over to the little brook behind our house, sticks the squirrel's head in the brook, drowns it, and leaves it. Just killed it for sport and left it. So they are cuddly, but keep your distance.
And the green herons used to perch right to the left of the Warden's Watch. There was a great twig there, and somehow it was just high enough off the water so they could look for fish. And I got juveniles here. I got, many shots of green herons right in that same spot.
For the past couple of years, we've had a black-crowned night heron hang out pretty much the same area.
Yeah, the kingfishers are one of my favorite birds to photograph. They are so much fun. He had a bad hair day, but he got his fish. And kingfishers have this idea that if they whack the fish against the branch hard enough and often enough, they'll stun it so that it's easier to swallow. And this guy must have hit the fish about 10 times before it was immobile, and then he swallowed it. But I try to get the kingfishers whenever I could. I got a lot of interesting shots of them over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. That shot's amazing. Was that over where the branch pile is? Was he hanging out there?
Yeah.
We put it back together this winter, so hopefully the photographers will have some nice shots again this spring.
All right. And this is another perch that's not there anymore. We used to call this the goalposts. And cormorants like to just, after they fish, they have to dry their wings out, and they'll sit there for 10, 15 minutes, really. And it's very easy to get the photograph. You just wait till they turn their head. And this one had beautiful eye also.
Yeah, turquoise eye.
Yeah.
Also get to see, like, I never pay any attention to the cormorant's feet, but look how, he can put his toes around that post. Pretty cool. So that was off to the right from the Warden's Watch. So we didn't realize how prophetic this was when we wrote this quote. Today, the Celery Farm natural area has grown to more than 100 acres. It won't be getting much bigger. virtually no more nearby open land remains. And any little parcel in Allendale that is available gets developed these days. So I think more and more the Celery Farm has become an oasis, and actually the town needs more open space to handle, especially when COVID hit. So many people want to get outside and there aren't as many places as ideally there would be. But the Celery Farm certainly has been a wonderful oasis.
Yeah, and the swans, of course, the best photographs that I got with swans was when they built the nest right in front of the Peary platform. And it ended up, it was so interesting, Jim and I did a book on it, Swan Babies, but it was unfortunate. The babies, I don't know of one that made it in all the years.
We think the swan on the right may have been an early case of COVID.
Yeah.
Certainly had a runny nose there. This is another one of my favorite shots in the book. And it is, as you can see, a frog killing a gosling. And the gosling and their family had been in my backyard, and I was trying to get rid of them before they left their little cigars, and I sprayed them and they went running into that little brook behind the house and the spillway. And Jerry and I were meeting some people from the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. We get to the spillway and there is this frog is just wrapped his lips around a young gosling. And it's like, I really can't believe what we're watching here. And we watched for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, I had time to go to the car to get my camera and come back, and the frog was still just holding the chick like that. And the conservation people and Stiles all said that they'd never seen anything like that.
I'm told they will occasionally like nail a hummingbird or even a cedar waxwing, some of these frogs. So I keep my distance personally. So Jerry and I were doing a talk for Rockland Audubon, and we're showing all kinds of pictures of herons and egrets. And then we get to this picture and there's a gasp in the audience. And did I disappear?
No, you're good.
Okay. There's a gasp from the audience. And I go, what's wrong? He said, that is a disgusting picture. That frog killing a gosling. And I said, well, you know, nature, that's nature's food chain, I guess, and frogs have to eat too. And about 3 slides previous, we had a picture of a great blue heron eating a frog. No one said boo.
Nobody got upset.
People have a pecking order here, and the frog is clearly below birds. So when a frog wins, I think it's a win for the under frog or the underdog. And of course, this is one of the great shots Jerry took. And that, I think that later became the box for Duck Enough to Fly. But the wood ducks sitting on the box is just wonderful.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to see that 3 different times up there.
Yeah, and this is one thing that has not changed about the Celery Farm. It is still wonderful, and I think some wood ducks have been back already, and you just, you know, late March and spring's around the corner. So I know we've all been through a lot in the last year, and this is kind of an upbeat picture, and I think that's what's in order these days. I'm not sure about this picture being in order.
Yeah, but it does show you how it's changed. I had mixed feelings about the loosestrife for years that it was there, because I knew it wasn't great for the ecology, but it sure was beautiful to photograph early in the morning. And when you got birds, or in this case, the deer, and deer were quite rare in those days. I mean, I got very few images of deer. So this was important for me. Now, the deer population has gone rampant, but there's lots of you can see how much life is in this picture if you look on the right. There are ducks all galore, and I think there's a great blue in the back.
Yeah. And it's sort of, I think of it as the changing of the guard. The Fyke brought in all those beetles that ate the loosestrife and only the loosestrife, which got rid of it. But about the same time, the deer started moving in. So it's the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
Speaking of deer, we were so excited to see this picture, and it's really a neat photograph with the antlers, and the color is just wonderful. But you know, new people to the Celery Farm get all excited about the deer, and they are individually beautiful. But we had a drone survey of the Celery Farm last year, did a deer population survey, and there were over 60 deer when the Celery Farm has enough land for maybe 2. So it has 30 times as many deer as the place should really hold. And that's why we built that deer exclosure, the north end of Lake Appert, so people can see what an understory looks like when it hasn't been just devoured by deer. Speaking of devoured by deer, this is jewelweed, also called poppers. And when I first moved in, they were everywhere. Everywhere you walked in Celery Farm, you hit a patch of them, and it was so much fun, especially if you're with a little kid, because you touch the little seed pod and it would pop and fly out, and they're just a beautiful little flower. They are smaller than a penny, right? About size of a penny, I guess. But Jerry's picture here, that was a macro, I imagine, but that's what a shot.
Yeah.
And to get that color is spectacular.
And this was a Wilson snipe that I think hung around too long in the winter. I was walking around the farm in the winter is very, very different feeling, and you're looking out for different scenic shots, and it's very quiet and it's beautiful, but there are very, very few birds. But this fellow was there, and I was lucky enough to get it.
Where did you get that straw, Jerry?
Pardon me?
Where did you get that straw? Okay, so this could be my favorite shot. The art of seeing, and now we're seeing the people who are doing the seeing. And with the help of Mike Limatola and Carol Castles, we've identified at least half the people. Everyone knows on the far right is Mallard G. Fillmore. And I think he's feeding Marsh Warden Stiles Thomas. And right behind Stiles is Marsh Warden Mike Limatola. He's making sure no one sneaks up on us. And Carol Castles and her husband are in the back, right with that green scope. Rob Fanning is there. There's 2 guys I don't know. And my brother and me are in the back. The Warden's Watch was so crowded that we couldn't fit up on the main deck. So we were like the minor leaguers were relegated to the back. Here's another shot. See a little closer. We were trying to decide whether Stiles is feeding the duck or the duck's feeding Stiles. And also, I didn't realize how overgrown in front of the platform was.
Yeah, this was shot from Peary to the Warden's Watch. And this was an interesting morning. I had gotten word, I was coming back from New York at a meeting Saturday afternoon, and I'd heard that there was a prothonotary warbler at the farm, but by the time I got there, it was 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, and I couldn't find it. So I thought I'll come back the next morning early and see if I can see it. And I got there about 5:30, and of course, Rob was already there looking for it. And when the light came, Rob heard it, and then we saw it. And we watched it for a few minutes, and then Rob said, "Boy, wouldn't it be great if a cerulean warbler came along?" And sure enough, Rob wishes and it comes. 5 minutes later, we had both of them there. And the cerulean didn't stick around for very long, but I was lucky enough to get one decent shot.
Jerry is a true quick draw artist. And this is with a film camera, so always impressive. This was our little joke about the shoveler in the snow. And that's pretty cool. And you really get a feel for the amazing plumage on those no-shows.
Yeah. And this was the long-eared owl showed up one summer, and it created quite a stir. Stiles roped off a large part of the trail on the western side, and you didn't have access to it. But Patrick got one photograph, and I know Mike Limatola, we had his picture in the book, another picture of the long-eared.
Yeah, pretty cool shot. This could be the most famous visitor, right?
Quite a stir. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, this is the purple gallinule who showed up one summer morning, and it was the celebrity of New Jersey. Everyone who wanted to chase a bird, needed a bird for their life list for New Jersey or this county, you name it, they were up seeing this purple gallinule. And there'd be guys coming in from their lunch hour. Doctors, surgeons from Morristown General Hospital drove up in their scrubs, took the picture, and saw the bird, and then raced back home. So the Celery Farm was like the center of the birding universe for a little while there. And of course, it never gave us a good look.
I think people came from 5 different states. And I look at this picture now, and it's sort of funny because down here in Sarasota, the purple gallinules are quite common, and I can get their eyeball photographs. They come so close. And I've gotten photographs of them feeding the 2-year-old chicks. And when I look at this picture, Doug had to work on this for quite a bit to make it out as a purple gallinule. And in the picture on the right, there's 3 different birds. There's a green heron on the right, and I think it's a wood duck on the left.
Yeah, I call that shot on the left the Greta Garbo shot, one of those grainy shots. This was sort of a humbling experience. David Sibley was nice enough to proofread the book for us, and he pointed out some of our mistakes. And I had not been birding that much before I got to the Celery Farm, and Jerry was more of a photographer. And I think the most embarrassing error was Mr. Sibley said politely, that is a pied bill grebe, not a pie bill grebe. And he looked back and he, oh my goodness, how embarrassing. But this sparrow, for sparrow fans, I don't know what we called it, but he said that is a Lincoln sparrow, not whatever you called it. So we were incredibly indebted to him.
We didn't argue with him.
Yeah, we didn't argue with him at all.
Yeah, and this is again from Peary. Photographers always look for bright sunlight with a storm approaching, and you get some very interesting light. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I said, Jerry, this has to be in the book. It's just the colors and the bruised sky in the background is just wonderful.
And there's a fun story with this one too. In the days when the meetings were given at the Wyckoff Library, when I was scheduled to present, I used to come in from school in New York at about 5:30 or so, and I had a key to the library, and I would set up and make sure the slide was focused properly and everything. And I set up all the chairs, and then I still had 2 hours before the meeting. So it was in the winter, it was dark, and I decided to go back over to the Celery Farm because it was a full moon, and it was just perfectly set up for me. So I squeezed that in between the presentation and dinner.
And we thought this is one of the shots we decided we'd end the book with. One was the moon shot, and this is the hooded merganser typical view of a hooded merganser. When he's first, as soon as he sees you, he is taken off. And quick draw, Jerry did get him in mid takeoff there.
Yeah, they're very shy.
And this, of course, is Eyebrow, the wonderful pheasant. And his harem is not with him, but boy, the early 2000s to have the pheasants in the Celery Farm was a real treat. And you'd walk around looking for them and hope to see them. The turkeys have replaced them. They're not quite as dynamic as the pheasants, but the turkeys make people laugh. They are pretty funny, big birds. And we miss Eyebrow a lot.
Yeah, and there were babies that were photographed. They used to hang out in the Fox Run area. And it was a shame.
So I want to thank you for listening. I'm going to stop the screen share and hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions. And just if you have more information, need more information about Fyke Nature Association and the Celery Farm, go to fykenature.org. If you're new to the group, please join us. We'd love to have you come to the Celery Farm and enjoy it as much as we do. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And there we go. I'll hit the questions and see what we got here. Dale Larkin says that I can see you, but apparently you do not see me. That is correct.
Right.
But no questions. If you want to type something in, that'd be great. I guess we answered everything. We're going to go.
Sally Teshon had raised her hand. I don't know whether she had a question.
I think she had to go to the bathroom. What is growing inside the deer exclosure? Well, I think all kinds of stuff. Fred has planted many native species. We've seen trout lily last spring. And Mike, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, everything's coming up in there. And we had a scout do part of his Eagle project. He planted some white oaks that would have been, eaten down to the ground by now if the deer exclosure wasn't there. So they're coming up. He planted 18 Christmas ferns. All kinds of little native violets and things that spring beauties and trout lilies and everything that I had been spot spraying for years with a critter out to try to keep them from getting eaten. And also things aren't getting trampled in there too, that a lot of stuff are getting trampled by the deer. So keep an eye out, walk around, a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, we think in a couple of years it'll have an understory again, which would be quite a concept.
Yep.
Just a reminder of what the Celery Farm could be without quite so many deer.
Yes. Yesterday, the red-shouldered hawks were mating at the Fell House, so up in a tree.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So, and there was one calling over the lake while they two were in a tree. So that's at least 3 that are around. So that's good.
That's terrific. So I think we're going to end our presentation shortly. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we'll just show a couple more pictures that Jerry took since the book came out, and obviously too late to do it. So I'm going to share. I think we're looking okay, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is a picture perfect wood duck. It looks like Mother Nature painted that, right?
Yeah, what you try to do with this when you have such still water is to get the proper angle to get a perfect reflection. Sometimes when I would look at this slide, I would turn it upside down and try to decide which was right side up, because the reflection was almost as sharp as the photograph. But wood ducks, of course, are spectacular to photograph. They're one of the most marvelous ducks and birds that I know of.
Yeah, I just noticed a comment from Patricia Strouch, who says, my husband and I were married at the Celery Farm, as were Patty and I, and
Yes.
In the middle of winter, and it was during the Christmas bird count. And as we said our vows, 2 turkey vultures flew overhead. So it was a pretty special moment.
Yeah, this was a funny story with this one because the fox like to come out on the ice and play, and then that's really when they're most visible in the whole entire year. And I got them this day, but there was another morning shortly after that that I decided I'd go out early before sunrise and make sure I caught them if they come up at sunrise. And it was a rather cold day. In fact, it was 0 out. And I was dressed warmly and I wasn't that cold. I was sitting on the bench in front of the Warden's Watch, and there's no activity. And then a gentleman comes along who's going to shovel the snow off because they're going to have an ice hockey game. And then a few more people come and there's still no fox. And then Jim showed up and he said, "Aren't you cold?" And he was kind enough to give me a cup of coffee. And then about another 15 minutes went by, and there were so many kids out on the pond making noise that I figured there's not going to be any fox this morning. And I just packed up and went into Jim's house. So sometimes you get lucky and it pays off, and other times you wait and you don't get anything.
And here are the red shoulders.
Yeah.
Great shot of chick in the nest. And as Mike said, we're hoping for another nest this spring. That'd be awesome. Cedar waxwing shot. You cannot go wrong with a cedar waxwing shot, especially
I
when
know
it
this
looks
is
like
Patty's favorite, so we had to put this in.
a spectacular shot. And this is the Moby catbird. We had a leucistic catbird over at Fairs Pond one year, and we were hoping it would come back, and I look for it every year, but no luck. And finally, that great shot from the Duck Enough to Fly with the baby wood duck taking its great leap of faith. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna thank everybody for coming tonight. And email me if you have more questions. I don't want to run too long tonight. I know it's been a long day for everybody, but it was great to be with you all and to celebrate the Celery Farm. So thank you all, and we'll say good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thanks,
night,
Jim.
Mike.
Take care.
Yeah, great. Good job again, Jim.
Take care.